Hello, hello, hello. What ho? Welcome back to another exciting adventure of the Plain Truth 2.0. I'm your host, Travel Mateus, also on Radio Free Anarchy. The principle that I want to establish as a suggestion for you to take into consideration is that when one is making terrestrial or aquatic observations over vast distances with no other physical obstruction between the target and the observer. When the entire field of view is wide open and all you have is extension of space, and it's over the earth or it's over water, doesn't matter. Because what we're talking about is the convergence of the ceiling of our view and the floor of our view meeting in the distance. And that always happens on the earth. You're either on the earth or you're on the water. And if the water is big enough and you have no land around you, then the only thing that's ever going to be in front of you is the apparent convergence of the sky and the water, which we call the horizon. And we call it the horizon because the Greek word for division is horizon. And then you have to take into consideration when you are on the earth that you have the possibility that if you are in proximity to a mountain range, then that mountain range is going to make you look up to see the horizon because that's where the earth is meeting the sky at that angle. Right? So that if you have all of those things, but if you get far enough away from all of that, then you are simply going to have just this line of division between the sky and the land. Okay? When you're making terrestrial or aquatic observations over vast distances, the only thing that ever affects by obstruction or extension of your visibility, the only thing that ever affects your visibility by either obstructing the target or extending your vision past the target is the condition of the medium through which you were looking. Please let me know if that makes sense. Please say, yes, Travel, I understood exactly what you were trying to say, even though you took a long time saying it. Okay. This video is showing us a different presentation of the same observation from it on a different day. Okay. Here we have a proximate beach. This is where the limitation of not only the visible water is, but also the physical water. I know that the physical water stops right there at the beach because just that's the way it works, right? Unless you have more water, the water is going to go up and up and up. It's going to saturate, whatever. My point is that this is where the physical limitation of the water is. If you go to the next portion of land, which is farther south, this now becomes the new shoreline that far away. And that's what the shoreline looks like that far away. And if this is 20 miles away, let's say, and then we got 20 miles away from this shoreline would look like this one. It would just be a washed out blur. But you're just looking farther and farther and farther and farther into the distance, which is now what's happening here, because as we move left to right, it's not just a Cartesian coordinate of rigidity in space, like you can't move any, no, it goes into the distance. Right? This is not a two-dimensional image. This is a three-dimensional image because it has depth to it. It's going away from you. And so just as you can see the presentation, right? Let's see. Just as you can see the presentation of the way that this land looks at this distance, this is what this land looks as you are looking through this volume of air which is a fluid, which is behaving much like a liquid right now. Like do you not think that at sometimes as you watch what's happening right now, does it not look as though you're looking through water? That's just a side question for you to take into consideration. This entire field is moving, glistening. And sometimes the camera struggles with the light, right? But look right here. You see these two people right here? Which one's male and which one's female? Can you tell me that? Which one has a hat on? Which one's taller? Which one's shorter? This is what this looks like at this distance, because you're getting farther and farther away. So we have these expressions at the division here. We'll call this the horizon because the horizon is the division, right? This is the horizon here. This is the horizon here. Does that make sense? Because here's where we have the top and the bottom, and now here's the top and the bottom in a farther location. But you can clearly see that there are these lighter patches. Like, what is this area here? Right? So, if this is the way it looks here at this distance, then does it not make sense to you that when you look farther into the distance, it's going to look more and more and more and more distorted somehow? So that you're not able to have the same accuracy with your sight. But here is where the physical water is limited. Here is where the physical water is limited. This wavy, messy energy is like waves in the air, right? But in this point right here, in this horizon, in this little part right here, if you see where I'm just circling right here, it's like I'm circling right here. Here's the shoreline. Here's the shoreline. That's the same claim. And now we're just moving farther and farther and farther away. And as you do that, you're going to see things just disappear. Now, in this area right here, from this point to this point, is going to begin the Fata Morgana event. Okay? So we have a distortion of the land here. We have a miraged event here. We don't have anything miraging here. This is distorted. So just like this is the top of the area here, this is the top of the area here. This horizon, we'll just call it green and gray, right? Green and gray, right? Everything below this is now in a Fata Morgana event, which is a mirage event, which is below the target. So everything in this area now is just going to get. Just keep your eye on this entire area. Like right here, this is where it starts, and as we move across, it's going to be in this area. Now, at some point, as we move down into the event more and more. Whereas I'm going to say this is where the physical water ends. This is where the physical water ends. I'm going to try to say at what point I think the visible water is now no longer ending physically but optically. Okay, and I'm just going to say it right here. Because we have this inversion of a mirage event, and mirages are what create the limit to the visible water. Okay? When you get into a mirage event, but see, you don't see at what point does that really happen along this line? I don't know. I'm saying that as you're looking from here, where you can see, you still got the waves at the shoreline. Maybe this is a person or whatever. Oh, these are rocks. Okay, this shoreline now looks like this at this distance, and this is where this is where the physical water hits the shore. This is still where the physical water hits the shore because we don't have a mirage here yet. As soon as the mirage starts, that's where we start getting into distance just disappearing, because this is now closer to us than this was. This is farther away, farther away, farther away. Here's the event now. It's closer to us. And the only way, I think, to understand that is to have made these observations. But now look, as he's panning in this area here, you can just see this smudging of the thermal event.